Hi everybody, welcome to a new tutorial from Sound for More. It's Leo speaking. Today I have the pleasure to introduce you to Bleass Phase Mutant, a very interesting effect which is using frequency modulation synthesis or algorithms to produce very unique effects. It's not a coincidence that Bleass released these after their latest synth Omega, because that is where they also use frequency modulation as a synthesis. So it's an AUV-free effect. So we are going to demonstrate using AUM as I normally do in my tutorials. So let's create an audio channel, and as an audio source, let's use something from Paul from 4 Pockets like Digisticks 2. Let's set it to be controlled by the host, and let's create a simple drum patterns like so, with some bass drums, snares, and closed hat. So let's listen to what I quickly created. Okay, perfect. I definitely recommend Digisticks. So if you haven't used it before, it's a fantastic product. Now let's search for Phase Mutant. There it is. Let's load it and maximize the window. As you can see, usual controls from Bleass, therefore it should be really familiar, not really a lot of a complicated journey to learn to use the new effects, because it's usually familiar and controls and user interface from Bleass. So if you used other products from Bleass, you will be already familiar on how to use controls from the user interface. At the top here, you have selection for a preset. Let's click on it and let's go up to the top and select the default preset, because I will use that to demonstrate how to use the effect and how it works. Again, this is the usual familiar interface from Bleass, so you can search there. You have the category between the different categories between user and factory here. You can select some factory preset. You can overwrite one you created, create a new one, rename them, import and export them, delete them, etc., etc. You also have a dice button here, which allows you to randomize the parameters, which you can use, of course, to create a new preset and explore, I would say, new preset, because it's using randomization to change the parameters for the different controls. Okay, following from the top, you have 3 different tabs. So you have an effect tab, the LFO and the envelope follower tab, and a sequencer as well, a motion sequencer, which is really nice. So let's start with the effect tab. Now, if I click play on AUM, you should hear the drum pattern from Digisticks 2. Okay, first things first, you have an output section here. So you're a dry and wet mix. So let's set these to maximum, so wet, maximum, so we will hear only the transformed audio. Okay, but of course you can change that to your choice. You can set different frequency for cutoff, and also your gain as well is down here. Double click and it will go back to the default setting for that particular control. So just bear that in mind. Very simple, but it can come handy as well. So the way that it works is you choose, first of all, an algorithm here. And if you click on here where there is this image, you have 3 types of algorithms. So you can have a signal which is generated by an internal oscillator from Phase Mutant, which is modulating the audio input, or you can have the opposite, the audio input modulating that signal generated by Phase Mutant. And thirdly, you can have the audio input modulating itself. So let's start with the first selection, where we have these sound or oscillator sound produced by Phase Mutant to modulate the audio input. Now, the way it works is it will track the differences in pitches from the left, right channel or the combined ones as well to determine the frequency for that, in this case, if you check here, the waveform, sine wave. Okay, so the frequency will be based on the pitch which has been detected. So it acts on transient detection. Okay, and that is important. Now, because you have, in this case, a signal which is generated internally to modulate the audio input, you can also select different waveforms. So, for example, you can go to triangle, you can go to sawtooth, down to square form, and that becomes really handy. You can also choose the ratio, which is a multiplier. So, because it uses pitch detection to determine the base frequency for that internal signal, which is modulating, in this case, the audio input, you can use the ratio here or multiplier to multiply that frequency of that internal generated sound. Okay, if I click play again, you will hear the normal drum pattern, and that's because you need to set the intensity here and the amount. What's the difference? Well, the intensity is like setting the maximum in terms of how much the amount can go up, and therefore how much the modulation will impact, in this case, the audio input. So let's choose extreme, okay? And then let's start to increase the amount here, and let's listen to what happens. Remember, as you move up in intensity from light to medium and extreme, you add latency. So just remember that. Okay, so you are starting to hear now that the internal signal is modulating the audio input. Now, to make it more a dramatic effect, let's change the ratios. So as you can see, as I move the ratio dial, says 4:1. So this frequency for the internal signal is multiplied by 4. Okay, so let's listen. Of course, you can go also the opposite way as well. Because it is an internal generated signal that is modulating the audio input, you can also set the attack in terms of how it is modulating the signal and also the release. And also you can set how smooth the transition is in terms of moving from one pitch to the next, because it will change that detected frequency. You can act on plus or minus an octave up and down, okay? And you can also create a phase offset between left and right channel. So let's try. Okay, let's change also the type of sound, and let's load, for example, a piano. Let's create a MIDI channel, and let's load, for example, step bud, like so. Let's connect the keyboard and step bud to the piano. Let's open up step bud. Let's decrease the rate to something like half. Then let's create some notes up and down the octave, so I can get you to listen to the difference in terms of release, attack, etc., etc. So let's open up phase Mutant. Let's click play again. So you can hear now much better the difference on attack and release. Now, let's change the algorithm and let's make the audio input to modulate the internal generated signal, okay? And that will give you some interesting effect in this case using that grand piano as an input source. So you can hear much better now that the attack is slowing down the modulation, right, on the signal. Now let's try on the release. Interesting. And now let's hear the difference as I adjust this smoothness, which will act between the different pitches detection. So you can hear Phase Mutant trying to smooth the modulation on the signal itself. Now, let's change the ratio now based on this algorithm. You can hear better the waveform. Now let's change the waveform as is displaying. Okay, let's decrease the ratio now. And listen to what effects you can create if, for example, you add a reverb as after Phase Mutant. Let's choose a Bleass reverb as well. So let's try. Very interesting, right? And of course, you have an additional algorithm, which is where you can have the input signal modulating itself. As you can see, some of the parameters are disabled here because it doesn't make sense to adjust the attack release ratio, fine-tuning, and change the waveform of the internal signal because it's not used really. Okay, so let's go. Let's listen actually to this algorithm. Let's change the octave on step pad. Let's go one octave below and let's try. We're changing duration, but it doesn't make sense in this mode. So let's go back to the previous one. So we have the audio input modulating the internal signal. Now, let me show you additional controls that you have in Phase Mutant. So you have an additional tab here, and LFO, two LFOs here, and they work in the traditional way of other Bleass applications, so they can run in free mode or in bit mode, where you can see you have the rate changes based on bits per minute. Let's leave it for free mode. You can change the different waveform for the LFO, create an initial offset as well if you want, if you are in bit mode, and then you can choose the rate here and different targets and the amount. So and that works for both LFOs. So let's try. Let's choose the target and let's choose, for example, why not the ratio? Actually, let's go for the cutoff so we can hear that for sure. always great to actually change the control first manually and then apply the different automation that works better. You can see also that you see the modulation running for each control, like in this case, which is really nice. So you can see where the modulation is applied. So let's choose, for example, the also ratio here as well. Okay, and let's decrease a little bit the rate, and let's click play. You can hear it better now that it's changing the ratio between audio input and the internal generated signal, right? Okay, so the effect comes also with an envelope follower, which acts when it detects a transient, which is really nice. So let's set these to 0 for both amount, and then let's use the envelope followers to actually act on the ratio itself. Let's increase a little bit the gain. Okay, and let's try. So let's position it somewhere there. Let's click play. So you can see is acting on the different notes coming in, because it will detect the transient in that way. Okay, what you can also achieve in this way is really nice effect. So let's increase the release to maximum and decrease a little bit the gain. And let's try again. You can see it takes longer to decrease because the release is longer. So let's decrease the ratio a little bit more. And now, instead of using the step pad, let's try on the keyboard. You can hear as the release is coming down on the ratio, it will change the ratio, so it will produce different effects on that signal, which will mean different notes because it's changing the ratio for the frequency, which sounds like almost a delay effect, but with different pitches, right? And that's a very interesting effect. Okay, so you can have different targets here as well, up to 2, right? Okay, next we have also a sequencer. So this is a traditional motion sequencer that you have seen in other Bleass application. You can decide how many steps you want there, the resolution in terms of speed. Then if you want to snap on or off to the grid, reset it. And then you can click up and down here. Like so, create a pattern like that. Choose if you want some randomness, and also how to move the transition from one step to the other, and then you have 2 targets. So let's choose again the ratio, and let's set to something like that, and let's click play. Nice, so is working. You can change, for example, the resolution. So let's go to 1/8. Really nice. And of course, here you can click on this symbol. You can change the type of step, ascending, descending, connected, or single step like that. Okay, and which of course you have to change for each one of them, like so. And here you can change the snap on and off, as I just mentioned. Now, the interesting thing is also that you can add some randomness. Okay, and let's add also some smooth, and let's try again. Okay, Okay, let me show you now how it sounds, for example, with a WAV file. Let's go for a file player. Let's choose a loop. So it will loop through, and let's choose a previously used waveform. Let's play it. Okay, so you know what it sounds like. And now let's open Phase Mutant and let's listen to it. Perhaps I'm going to use different presets now. Really interesting. Let's try the dice to randomize some of the parameters, and let's listen to what happens. It's quite interesting, a different effect from what we are used to see or use, right? So yes, you have an LFO for modulation sequencer. I really like you have an envelope follower for actually making modulation to different parameters. I think that is really, really nice. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I hope you enjoy and see you in the next tutorial. Thank you. Bye.